Okay, so this is my long overdue description of slurps, or Michael Tuckman. Slurps are one of my favorite open string exercises. They were taught to me by my second cello teacher, who is Nancy Jo Snyder in Washington, D.C. And basically slurps are they're string crossings. They're done on long bows, and the idea is to progressively subdivide the notes so that the notes change faster and faster. Typically I start these on the D and the G string because it's a little easier because your bow is just going straight back and forth. So I would say that one of the skills you need to have before you can do this exercise is you need to be able to do a decent double stop across the D and the G string with your bow relatively straight back and forth and good movement of your arm. And I think I'll next just demonstrate to you what slurps look like, and then I can talk to you about a couple of the things to watch for as you're practicing them. So this is my metronome. I have it set on 60. And usually I will start with 4 beats to the bow. Later on I'll often move to a metronome marking of 88 and do 8 beats to a bow, but this is a good starting point. So you need to be able to do decent 4-count bows. Straightforward. And then you start just dividing them. So you begin with half notes. As far as I can go before it falls apart. Okay, so it's pretty simple. The two things you want to really pay attention for as you're learning to do these kind of string crossings are that the movement comes from the arm and not the wrist, and that the arm level has to change before the bow direction changes, particularly as you're moving to an up bow. It's a little easier on the down bow. So I see an awful lot of people who want to try to do slurps by just moving their wrist. It's really hard to make an even set of string crossings when you're just moving the wrist. And in addition, your bow is constantly coming out of the string. So this is to help foster the idea that it's the arm that changes the height to move the bow to each successive bow level on different strings. That's hardest to do when you're moving from down bow on a lower string to an up bow on an upper string. So this is really, the half notes are one of the most challenging subdivisions in slurps. Change. What you might want to do is actually practice that movement before you really start doing this, because it's critical to get an even weight on the strings, that you've got that arm motion making the bow level change for you. The other thing that I'm thinking as I'm doing this is, as I'm moving my bow in this direction, I'm sort of imagining that I have got, you could think of a string pulling your elbow from the outside or an arrow pushing your elbow from the inside, so that your elbow is actually leading your down bow direction, and then as you switch to up bow, it becomes more of a forearm. Some people like to think wrist. For me, that doesn't work so well because it tends to make me do this. So I think of my forearm leading in the up bow direction. And so you can actually spend a very profitable few minutes just playing open strings, going down, leading from the elbow, and up, leading from the wrist. And just imagining the feelings of that as you're playing. So I also don't tend to play slurps the way that I demonstrated. I'm going from one subdivision to the next with just a single bow stroke because there's a lot of balance issues that need to be worked out with each set of subdivisions. So you can profitably do, 10 or 12 bows on each subdivision before moving on to the next. This is a really great warm-up as you're just starting to play because it really gets your shoulder girdle to loosen up as you're beginning to play. And it's also kind of a fun thing to do if, as Michael is, you are handicapped and you can't play anything with your left hand. I think you need to find some interesting things to do with your right hand. So in my next installment, I'll show you a more advanced slurp that makes a good practice technique for learning the first few bars of the Bach First Suite Prelude.